The story of the Seven in the comics is vastly different from what we see on screen. So in today's episode, dedicated to the legendary Light Yagami, we dive into the lives and deaths of these iconic characters who once graced this elite team. In the comic universe, Vought American Consolidated introduced the Seven shortly after debuting Homelander in 1969. Unlike the TV series, the original material reveals that the entire cast of the Seven was crafted within the secretive labs of the corporation. Each member underwent the same rigorous process as their team leader, engineered from scratch using a sophisticated version of Compound V, starting right from gestation. While many details remain shrouded in mystery, it's said that after perfecting Homelander, Vought replicated this creation process for each subsequent member. Black Noir, Queen Maeve, Jack from Jupiter, the Deep, and eventually Lamplighter and Mr. Marathon. This strategic move ensured that the company had the most formidable supers in history on their roster. What sets the Seven apart even further is that all other supers receive Compound V at later stages, some even during their childhood. The earlier the dose is administered, the more potent the result, making those outside the Seven who reach this power level rare exceptions, undesired accidents in the eyes of the corporation. So strap in as we explore each character's unique journey from creation to their inevitable end, revealing the dark and twisted paths these engineered beings have walked. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. With very few exceptions, we can confidently say that the Seven are the most powerful superhero group in the saga. Their diabolical original formula remained in effect for over 30 years, until Vought had the brilliant idea to orchestrate the events of September 11th, where Mr. Marathon is the first official member of the Seven to move to the other neighborhood. Little is known about the personal life of Vought's latest creation, other than being a parody of Flash and being deployed during the 9/11 mission alongside the rest of the team. A commercial plane is out of control, and the powerful group's goal is to regain control of the aircraft and prevent catastrophe. Despite Mr. Marathon lacking flight capabilities, he's among the few supers able to enter the plane. Inside, chaos reigns as he attempts to reach the cockpit using his speed, only to be struck by the door, recently removed by Homelander himself. The impact knocks him unconscious momentarily. When he regains his senses, he witnesses Homelander, covered in the pilot's remains, moving to the rear of the plane, attacking his own female teammate. Despite Marathon's repeated inquiries, Homelander refuses to confess his intentions until Marathon realizes Homelander is about to abandon the mission. Mr. Marathon gives it his all, managing to grab hold of the leader's feet, who doesn't like the situation at all. Homelander is poised to use his laser vision against his teammate, but realizes Marathon is quick-witted. Marathon wastes no time and reminds the hero of his life premise, that Homelander can do anything he wishes. A clever move that addresses Homelander's concerns. Marathon won't disclose the plane incident, and if Homelander truly can do anything, saving Marathon's life should pose no problem. The powerful super agrees to spare his loyal colleague's life. Both escape the disaster, and Mr. Marathon looks forward to a long life surrounded by loved ones. Just kidding. Actions speak louder than words, and Mr. Marathon's noble heart can't allow the plane to crash into New York City. He implores Homelander to act. Fearful of disappointing his creators, Homelander listens. Marathon suggests lifting the plane from below. Homelander, an enthusiast of applied physics, responds that there is no point from which to push. But without saying another word, he begins his charge against the aircraft. The super has a flawless plan. Homelander attempts to strike the rear of the plane, hoping to stabilize it for a safe glide. Marathon holds on for dear life, witnessing firsthand the incredible speed of his powerful leader, a spectacle witnessed once in a lifetime. Literally, the next thing Mr. Marathon hears is a profound silence. As a result of the collision, the super's head had ended up leaving his body, marking the tragic end of Mr. Marathon, the first member of the Seven to meet his creator. Mr. Marathon died as he lived, in secrecy, his tragic tale known to none. His body fell onto a New York residence, but Vought paid the owner to keep the hero's death under wraps, continuing to profit from his image. This makes it clear heroism isn't rewarded by the Machiavellian company. Instead of receiving homage for saving New Yorkers' lives, Marathon is replaced by A-Train, who takes his place in the team celebration, where Lamplighter's appearance is, to say the least, curious. Lamplighter's life exemplifies the non-existent morals of the pretentious group. Unlike his peers, this super didn't bother to even save the aircraft. After being struck by the wing of the plane, Lamplighter bravely decides to abandon the mission. Within days, the Seven receive an invitation from the boys, eager to uncover the details behind the air catastrophe. Lamplighter is forced to listen as mere humans threaten Homelander with exposing compromising photos of the group unless they confess their disastrous intervention to the public. Despite Homelander considering retreat to contemplate the decision, Lamplighter refuses to tolerate this insult. From his perspective, the situation is surreal and unjust. He poured his soul into trying to save the crew's lives, and it's unfair that a group of randoms dare question his heroic intervention. Lamplighter pushed himself to the limit, almost giving his life to stop the aircraft. While Homelander tries to calm his subordinate on their return to Vought Tower, Lamplighter dares to use his powers to blind his teammates. His intentions are clear. He'll resolve the issue with the boys on his own terms. The Super follows the boys to the World Trade Center, where Greg Mallory hosts his beloved granddaughters. Late into the night, the Colonel goes out to dinner with his daughter, and the infamous Super seizes the moment to incinerate the two children. According to Maeve, after this atrocious act, the maniac arrived back at Vought Tower laughing like a lunatic, an action that far exceeds the company's immorality. Vought America intends to negotiate peace with the boys' agency. Homelander takes the initiative and hands over his colleague to make amends to Greg Mallory. Bound and defenseless, Lamplighter is at the mercy of the CIA agent. Upon leaving the hangar, a tasteless vengeance is exacted against the disturbed Super. A bullet to the skull and disposal of the remains into the ocean concludes the maniac's story for the boys. However, Vought has other plans. The company agrees to hand over Lamplighter because they've readied their new resurrection program. The Super's brain is bombarded with some form of Compound V, a nefarious process that reduces Lamplighter to his most basic instincts, feeding on his own waste until the end of his days. His condition is so confidential that his former teammates must handle the cleanup themselves. The new recruits of the Seven are tasked with the grueling job of cleaning up Lamplighter's abundant waste, a task that takes both Supers a full hour, an hour they'll never forget, and perhaps Lamplighter won't either, as this would be the last time he had any company, because the moment in which Super obtained his desired eternal rest is not known, so it is very likely that in the middle of 2024, Lamplighter will continue living in these austere conditions. As for austerity in Jack from Jupiter's life, we find quite the opposite. This Super, capable of flight and invulnerability when he utters the word carpo, finds meaning in life in brothels and morally dubious places. While he neglected his duty during the 9/11 catastrophe, the rest of his life isn't much better when compared to other Super's activities. Jack from Jupiter epitomizes what happens when we lead lives devoid of virtue and direction. Without a greater purpose, the Super indulges in his basest instincts, consuming the worst substances and exploiting anyone in his path. Respect for life and integrity are values unknown to him. He's a regular consumer of the hallucinogenic substance known as dry fetus and frequents Dr. Peculiar's pleasure houses. Jack's life is a waste that's nearing its end. As they say, the path of bad decisions brings forth the worst evils, and Jack from Jupiter's life of vice carries its own punishments. The boys leak a video showing Jack enjoying his intimate visits to Dr. Peculiar's establishment, where he uses his invulnerability gained from uttering the word carpo to spend time with 6 transgender women. Although this is part of his private life, the media quickly picks up on the leak. Jack's reputation and privileged life are now in tatters, more so than this humble channel. Demanding justice from his leader, Jack sees the attack on his image as an attack on the Seven. In response, Homelander decides to meet with Butcher, but they deny involvement in the leak. With no evidence, Jack is exiled from the famous team. The boys celebrate their successful operation with a team dinner, but afterward they find Butcher's beloved dog lying lifeless on the apartment floor. The notorious Butcher has no proof but no doubts either. In a state of temporary unconsciousness, Butcher surprises Jack at Dr. Peculiar's, gripping the Super's neck so tightly that he's unable to invoke his powers. Without them, Jack is just a helpless human before William's vengeful fury, attacking him relentlessly and demanding why he harmed his dog. It doesn't take long for Jack to lose consciousness and embark on his journey to the other side. This marks the first life claim by the boys' agency from the Seven, an atrocious and unjust act. Butcher knows Jack is innocent of the crimes he accuses him of, but his thirst for revenge outweighs reason. Unfortunately for Jack, his life meets its end due to his own bad decisions. But speaking of bad decisions, the life and death of A-Train bring powerful lessons. The sprinter comes from humble beginnings in a modest neighborhood, and through training and doses of Compound V, he ascended to the pinnacle of Vought's hierarchy. A-Train is the fastest human in history, clocking speeds close to 1,300 kilometers per hour, earning him the distinction of being the first replacement in the Seven's original lineup. However, in the world of the boys, great power comes with great disorder. In the comics, A-Train is unable to control his speed, leading to a tragic accident where he inadvertently takes the life of Huey's girlfriend on his first mission. Anyone makes a mistake. However, A-Train's response to the situation is despicable. His actions border on psychopathy, with his values and manners being the worst among the Seven. Not only does A-Train participate in the infamous initiation of Starlight, but he also attempts to assault her days later. His behaviors are so infamous that it falls upon Homelander to discipline him. When you make a pathological narcissist like Homelander appear empathetic and virtuous, it highlights just how concerning A-Train's behavior truly is. Unlike the series where A-Train undergoes a profound and structured journey of redemption, in the comics his time in the Seven brings out the worst in him. A-Train doesn't hesitate to turn his back on Jack from Jupiter when the boys attack his image. Despite this hero guiding him into the team, A-Train doesn't even mourn his death, showing that Jack's life held no value to him. In just a few months of membership, the speedster engages in more immorality than most of his peers did in 30 years. Fortunately, before A-Train can amass more power, Homelander causes the company to collapse. Here, A-Train leaves the company without taking his contract, revealing that he values status and impunity more than the immoral business itself. Unfortunately for the audacious one, the boys don't recognize hierarchies or status, so Butcher takes it upon himself to hunt him down once A-Train leaves the Seven Tower. Butcher captures the super, immobilizes him, and leaves him as a tool for Huey to overcome his traumas. The pretentious hero thus becomes a therapeutic tool for one of his victims. Despite A-Train taking the life of Huey's beloved Robin, initially Huey refuses to harm the speedster. But when Butcher makes him listen to A-Train's indifference toward Robin's death, Huey, whose love for her was everything, is driven to madness and temporary unconsciousness. Still, he resists committing violence. Butcher continues playing recordings, and when Huey hears that A-Train was the one who recruited Starlight, exploiting what she was willing to do to join the Seven, it's the final straw. The Compound V, combined with Huey's rage, creates a potent mix. With one devastating blow, Huey separates A-Train's head from his torso, marking the end of the immoral hero. A-Train becomes a narrative tool used to corrupt the protagonist's virtue, a virtue that is absent in the Seven. Queen Maeve's life is a testament to this. This superheroine was designed to be the strongest woman in history. Her powers surpassed only by Black Noir in private and by Homelander in public. Vought's idea was to create a woman so powerful that her union with Stormfront would produce the strongest superhero ever. Even though the relationship didn't flow completely, in the 1980s the long-awaited day arrived, but the outcome wasn't what the company expected. For some strange reason, the offspring of the supremacist turned out a few shades darker than his supposed father. Faced with her unfulfilling relationship with her supremacist husband, Queen Maeve wasted her life in nights of excess. Lack of virtue isn't a gender-specific issue. Like other supers, lack of direction or significant purpose leads this woman to squander her life through excesses. Whether it's cheating on her partner or abusing substances, Queen Maeve's life and abilities become a complete waste due to her poor decisions. The privilege also has its downsides. Being a person who has everything, without the slightest effort, makes women lack gratitude. Life feels burdensome and tragic. Until one day she encounters true tragedy. The events of 9/11 mark a turning point in the life of the powerful lady. After being left on the plane by her leader, the heroine also tries to abandon the aircraft before it crashes. The passengers, desperate and unwilling to be abandoned, launch themselves at Queen Maeve. In the comics, she lacks the ability to fly, yet manages to glide by, throwing her weapon with such force that it defies physics. In a traumatic experience that will haunt her for the rest of her days, Queen Maeve, in an effort to save herself, takes the same action to exit the aircraft, piercing through the passengers' bodies. Her life of excess fails to calm her conscience. Consequently, Queen Maeve starts secretly collaborating with the boys' agency, continuously leaking information about the group until Homelander decides to take control of the United States. The Machiavellian leader never liked Queen Maeve's indifference, seizing the opportunity to end her existence. Unfortunately, Homelander's power is unmatched. The woman stands no chance against the superhero and meets her end within seconds. A brief window Starlight seizes to flee from the Seven Tower. Queen Maeve's journey to the afterlife is particularly tragic because moments before she had resolved to leave behind her path of bad decisions in pursuit of a life worth living. Sadly, it was too late, and Queen Maeve embarks on her journey without having lived a single day of her life. And at the end of the day, the most incredible power is that of knowing how to live, something the Deep from the comics understands very well. The heir of ancient Atlantis understands life like no other superhero. He is the only one of the seven who has a clear mission, summed up in the idea of becoming disgustingly rich. If the king of Atlantis left the seven seas, it was for an objective truly worth pursuing. That's why this character can completely separate his personal life from his professional life. The Deep's sole concern is to keep royalties flowing and filling his coffers. This version isn't interested in giving immoral welcomes to Starlight or using his powers to bond with the creatures of his kingdom. The Deep simply wants money. From the beginning of the comics, the character pressures to equalize his cash with Homelander, Black Noir, and Queen Maeve, who receive 1% of all profits generated by the team's image, while poor Deep only gets a measly 0.70%. This injustice is his only concern. This is what sets him apart as the best member of the seven. The Deep hasn't harmed anyone throughout the comics' history, doesn't use substances to evade reality, doesn't conflict with the boys, and perfectly understands the business to which he belongs. This allows him to enjoy his years of work and be the only superhero among the seven founding members who gets to enjoy the money earned for the rest of his life. At the end of the comic, Deep leaves the Seven Tower the evening before Homelander attempts to assault the White House, with his contract under his arm and a reliable accountant who will allow him to enjoy every last penny generated. Without a doubt, the Deep knows how to live, making him the most powerful member in the history of the Seven, in stark contrast to Starlight, who suffers from the famous anxious attachment. Her life story in the comics boils down to searching for a boyfriend who will blindly forgive her irresponsible and immoral behavior. The Starlight of the comics is a rather striking stereotype of a woman, victimized and never taking responsibility for her decisions. In the original material, she never officially becomes part of the Seven. Her presence in the team is merely a Machiavellian game orchestrated by Homelander and A-Train, who are interested in proving her immorality. While Vought aims to have her as an interim member for a year until they find a heavyweight to replace her, their goal is maximum profit with no restrictions on her public image. Vought tries to mold her into a woman of dubious morals. In just her second meeting with the Seven, Homelander presents her with a preview of the concept that she must embody. Unlike the Deep, who is a product of naivety, Starlight doesn't fully comprehend the world she's in. She believes the Seven are true heroes, saviors of humanity. Thus, when presented with her new suit, it becomes her latest and ultimate disappointment. Fed up with the immorality, she refuses to wear the new outfit that the company wants for her, a costume that is practically non-existent, supposedly symbolizing the change she underwent after being assaulted. Apart from this defiance, Starlight isn't much different from the other supers. Incapable of escaping the fear Homelander instills in her, she lacks the strength and willpower to speak out against the atrocities she witnesses within Vought. Therefore, her arc revolves around overcoming the challenges in her relationship with Huey. Huey must not only come to terms with dating a superhero but also seeing her during the events of her initiation, an ordeal that inspires her to leave the Seven before it's too late. Unfortunately, no one leaves Vought without their feet ahead, and it's Queen Maeve who sacrifices herself so that Starlight can escape Homelander, allowing her to live happily ever after with Huey. In essence, her role is reduced to being Huey's life partner, particularly as the comic begins with the death of his ex-girlfriend and ends with Annie attending the same event where her predecessor lost her life. But returning to the true protagonist of the comic, Black Noir's life is an example of discipline and restraint. He is Jonah Vogelbaum's second major creation for Vought American. According to the company, sequels are never as good, and despite successfully creating Homelander, Black Noir is marketed as a program failure, a mute simian figure incapable of expressing any emotion, disfigured by Compound V, whose imperfections are hidden behind his suit. Devoid of will or opinion, Black Noir's life is reduced to being Homelander's shadow. Like a faithful shadow, the Patriot occasionally rewards him, such as deceiving his teammate into surrendering to his loyal companion in 1997. Black Noir's discipline is unmatched. He follows orders unquestioningly. The Super appears to feel neither fear nor happiness. He is so enigmatic that not even his comrades wonder how he survived a 10,000-foot fall during the events of 9/11. Despite his supposed issues, he seems capable of anything, especially when it comes to committing immoral acts. This Super also participated in Starlight's initiation. And indeed, Black Noir's life hides a dark and disturbing secret. This hero is the worst of the entire saga. No one can be so disciplined. Black Noir was created solely as a containment plan for Homelander, a perfect clone awaiting the company's order to eliminate his counterpart. Unfortunately for him, that order never comes. After 30 years of rigorous surveillance, Black Noir begins to lose his mind. The Super is desperate for Vought to give the order, so desperate that he starts committing countless atrocities under his counterpart's identity, from adopting a reptilian diet to making unwelcome visits to others' wives. Black Noir photographs himself in these acts to tarnish Homelander's image. These actions lead the Super to believe that his narcissism has driven him mad, descending into a spiral of madness that culminates in an attempt to seize power over the United States by force. Finally, Vought gives the order, and Black Noir experiences the happiest day of his life. After years of waiting, the Super is given the green light to fulfill his purpose. But despite being designed to be capable of defeating Homelander, the reality is that their battle is evenly matched. In the end, the Super can barely stand, ultimately being riddled with bullets by the U.S. military. Thus ends the existence of this Machiavellian being, whose evil is the consequence of the immorality that Vought American Consolidated perpetuates in this world. In the comics, the company is so immoral that they do not even deserve the kindness and big heart of Homelander. Raised in a bunker, manipulated all his life, and exposed to rejection from figures he respects and admires, the life of the Homelander from the comics is a journey filled with injustices. Despite being the strongest superhero in history, the original Homelander does not commit even 1% of the atrocities we see in the series. While he was unable to prevent the September 9th catastrophe, the truth is that the Super did his best. Incompetence is not a worse sin than folly. Homelander fails like any other human, but his sin is his foolish belief that he is a perfect being who can achieve anything he sets his mind to. As the leader of the Seven, Homelander's life mirrors that of any other narcissistic lunatic, until one day the boys threaten him with images depicting unforgivable atrocities. Homelander has no recollection of these events, but it's the year 2001, and editing software and artificial intelligence are still in its infancy, leaving no doubt about the identity of the powerful Super. Initially, he isn't proud of the images. As his mind rationalizes them, he establishes them as an engine that deepens the dangerous idea that the Super can truly do anything. Therefore, when Starlight joins the Seven, Homelander organizes her immoral initiation, a Machiavellian game designed to test the Super's moral limits. Post-events, Homelander confesses to not enjoying any of it, making it hard for him to understand the boy's motives. Yet believing himself to be a flawless god incapable of error, he normalizes the situation. To him, humans are mere playthings, and his conduct is justifiable and appropriate. However, this sparks a question that changes everything. If he is capable of anything, why should he obey James Stillwell's orders as if he were his pet? To test his theory, he tries to refuse participation in the Belief Festival for the first time in history. Still, James Stillwell easily manipulates him as usual, leaving poor Homelander to cry like a child. As a result of this breakdown, he decides to take control of the United States, leading us to the end of his story. They say no man is truly free unless he can master himself. Homelander, in his quest to break free from the sinister threads shaping his life, makes the worst decision of all: chaos and confrontation. While the superhero is innocent of the disturbances portrayed in the photos, attempting a coup is grounds enough for Vought to revoke his license to live. Black Noir receives the order, and later that same day, Homelander discovers the hard way that he is more human than he thought. Black Noir's momentary madness and unconsciousness lead to the powerful superhero's inert body being pulled out of the White House, where Black Noir himself comes face to face with his creator moments later. In my opinion, Homelander's story and development are more intricate and compelling in the series. If we set aside his actions with Starlight, he remains the healthiest and most balanced superhero in history, just behind Deep. This frames the story of his life and death as a dramatic tragedy. However, in the series, we see a more mature version. If you're keen to delve deeper into Homelander's character, I invite you to watch my video on the series. If you'd like more videos on the boys' comics, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button to improve our reach. Thank you for being here. See you soon.